It's Ash from Super Videos, back for another suggested video. In this video we're going to be talking about how would Rick handle the Whisperers if he was still part of the show. Now this particular suggested video is actually broken into two segments. The first segment, which is actually the part that was suggested, is how would everyone react to Rick coming back and how would the reunion be like. Now I extended that, and as an extension of talking about how the reunion will be like and how everyone's going to react to Rick coming back, I will also talk about how would Rick handle the current situation that they're in and the current villains that we're seeing, the Whisperers, because I think that's a more interesting topic to dive into. But I will be talking a little bit about the first part, which was actually suggested. So looking at that first component, which is how would everyone react and how would the reunion be like? So if Rick came back, I'm sure that the reunion is going to be a very emotional and gut-wrenching scene. Everyone's going to be excited and overwhelmed seeing Rick there because, of course, everyone thinks Rick is dead. So everyone's going to be very excited to see Rick. But at the same time, there's going to be a bit of everyone not fully believing what they're seeing and everyone being in a bit of denial and not really believing in their eyes. But I think Daryl, Michonne, Judith, and Carol will probably have the biggest and most gut-wrenching and emotional reactions because they were the closest to Rick, or the ones that would react to his return in the most apparent way. Now for Daryl, I think the first thing Daryl is going to do after he stops crying, which he's probably going to do, is talk to Rick and tell him how much he blamed himself for what happened to Rick. And if something like that happens, Rick would most likely also tell him that he means more to him than anyone else, and it would kind of work as a scene that parallels the scene that they had together before Rick left and quote-unquote died, where Daryl said, "I would die for you, I would die for Carl." I'm sure Rick is going to say something along the lines of, "I would also die for you too, brother," something like that. But other than Daryl, Michonne will probably have a big reaction as well. She will be very happy to see Rick, of course, but she'll probably tell him about how difficult it's been for her trying to get over him and trying to make everything work. And she would probably get a bit of his advice about the current situations that are happening and how he would deal with it and, how he would kind of handle everything, given that he was a very capable leader in the eyes of most people. Rick will probably be very happy to see Judith all grown up and the fact that she's a capable fighter. Everything Rick has been doing has been for Carl and Judith. Of course, Carl died, but now Judith is there. And Rick would be very happy to see how much Judith has changed, how much of a fighter she really is. So I think that would be something that Rick would be very excited to see as well. Then he would be also very excited to meet his son, RJ, and he would probably kind of think about how Carl changed him and influenced him in the apocalypse, especially. And he would probably want RJ to do something similar for him as well. And for them to be as close as Rick and Carl were when Carl was alive. And also, he would probably want to learn about what happened to Maggie after finding out that Maggie left. Most likely after she blamed herself for what happened to Rick, similar to Daryl. And I think Rick would probably want to go out and find Maggie to make things right. He was that type of person. He wouldn't just sit back and say, "It is what it is." I think he would go out there and look for Maggie and try to make things right. And then as the last thing I'm going to talk about for this first component, he would probably be very surprised at how much Negan has actually changed. And how much Negan has been able to redeem himself. Of course, he will never be able to redeem himself 100%. But the fact that he is growing a bond with Judith, the fact that he is no longer the same old Negan that rubs things in your face to that extent and brags about the kind of shit he's done in the past, would probably surprise Rick to an extent. Now, with all of that said, my 5 minutes are up. So I will now move on to the second component of this video, which is an extension of the suggested video, which is how would Rick actually handle the Whisperers? So going back to what I talked about, Michonne will probably tell him about things that have happened and try to get his advice about, you know, the new threats that are coming in and the gap and the tensions between the communities. Rick's advice and Rick's opinions about that are a topic for another video, but how would Rick actually handle the Whisperers? What would he do? Given the bad experiences that Rick has already had, and also Rick still thinking about Carl and how Carl wanted to change how the future was, Rick would probably not be very open to another conflict, and he would probably be very cautious. He wouldn't probably want to take any more risks, and again, he would be very hesitant to go into another conflict with a new group. Also, he would probably not underestimate the Whisperers, like he underestimated Negan and the Saviors. And of course, he learned not to underestimate any group the hard way with the Saviors and Negan. And also, if he even starts a battle with this group, he would probably not be up to starting a full-scale war with them, much like the war with the Saviors. He would probably not want to go the same route. Even after Jesus' death, assuming things would happen along the same lines as what happened up to what we have now, Rick would still probably want to do the safest thing possible and just stay away from the Whisperers and from where the Whisperers most likely call their territories or where they live. Of course, the Whisperer that killed Jesus said, "You are where you do not belong." And I think that's a clear warning sign that you shouldn't be where you are, you know? We have our territories, you have your territories. And I think that's just a very first clue about how territorial the Whisperers are. And I think Rick was smart enough to realize that just from that single clue or that single warning from the Whisperers. Even after Rick is possibly persuaded by someone, Daryl or Michonne, to, fight back against the Whisperers, he would probably want to make peace with the Whisperers as the first strategy still. And he would only want to refer to violence and war as a last resort. Like, I don't think he would ever want to go to war with the Whisperers if he's not pushed into a corner. Because he has had bad experiences with going to war with another group. Of course, the Saviors. And I think as more people are hurt or killed along the way, that's what's going to kind of trigger Rick to change his decisions, to change his actions. And he would probably see no other option but to attack. And, go to war. But this time, I think his actions and decisions will be calculated. And they will be with purpose. And he wouldn't just do things for the sake of doing things. Like how he just attacked the Savior's outpost after Jesus told him that there's this new big group that are harassing us. You know what I mean? I don't think he would jump into anything without looking at everything he knows and making calculated decisions. That's basically it for my video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you next week for the next episode of Suggested Videos. Of course, this Friday night at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, we're going to have our live stream Q&A. And in that video, if you ask at least one question and if you stay in the live stream until the very end, your name will be put into a draw and you could get a chance to suggest a video for next week for us to cover. That's it for this video. See you next time for another super video. If you like what you see, press like, subscribe for more content, and press the bell button to receive notifications for daily uploads. Like and follow the Facebook page of this channel to join our community. And check out the upload schedule to learn more about daily uploads.